what's up YouTube? Welcome to today's video, and we are gonna go over the top 4 hardcore SSF Sanctum builds because the Gauntlet is approaching, and it's always interesting to see the difference between hardcore and softcore trade. And one of the biggest differences you'll see between hardcore and softcore trade builds is hardcore does not really place a huge premium on mapping speed. You'll see that they place more of a premium on the build being able to stay alive and also being able to do a little bit of bossing without endangering the character. Now, with these builds that we will see, there are completely different than softcore trade. So we actually go look at softcore trade right now. In Sanctum League, we will see that Spark is number 1, Righteous Fire, Fire Trap, Tornado Shot, Ice Spear, Cyclone, Hex Blast, Venom Gyre, and Summon Raging Spirits. And when we go look at the hardcore ladder, we'll see, or not hardcore ladder, but hardcore most popular skills, we'll see that they're completely different. And it's crazy to see this enormous difference. And the big difference is that a lot of skills that are considered overpowered or really good in hardcore simply aren't good in softcore because of its slow mapping speed or its clunkiness while playing. And we can see this in the skills that are actually the top ones, and we'll go over them real fast. And it's Bone Shatter, number 1. Number 2 is Explosive Arrow. Number 3 is Summon Raging Spirits. And number 4 is actually Seismic Trap. So I'll go over all of the builds. I'll showcase a little bit of bossing from someone that I found and go over what actually makes this build work so well in hardcore. And if you look at Hardcore Sanctum Trade, I didn't really include Hardcore Sanctum Trade in because I think the player base is a lot smaller. But regardless, you'll see that they're almost all of the same skills. Explosive Arrow, Summon Raging Spirits, Bone Shatter, and Seismic Trap. Now, right away, we have our favorite skill. The skill that has pretty much been nerfed over and over and over again. But like all bad balancing, every single time they nerf Seismic Trap, there is some compensatory buffs that actually makes it even stronger than before. And this time around, it was fixing this poison does damage 20% faster, was supposedly removing the duration by a double amount. So we were actually losing 20% poison duration from before. And then they decided to buff Temp Chains, which ended up being completely overpowered for almost every damage over time build. So right now, Seismic Trap is actually banned in the Gauntlet, and for good reason. If it was not banned in the Gauntlet, Seismic Trap would actually just be the number 1 skill overall. And let's go look at how the bossing actually looks like. So right here is a Uber Maven. Now this guy, I'm not really sure. He's not playing hardcore, so you'll see that he actually gets chunked a little bit. And that's one of the... Holy moly, this guy almost got straight up one tap. See, that's the difference between a hardcore and softcore build, right? A hardcore build would probably have around like 5 to 6k HP bare minimum, and I'm pretty sure this guy didn't path down towards the max res node. So you can see this guy's getting chunked. And if he has 6k HP, he probably doesn't have 100% spell suppression, but you can see the damage is a lot higher. However, in hardcore, you can't really take these risks. So you will kill the boss slower, but you will never get that low. If you get that low in hardcore, man, your character is probably going to be gone very, very soon. But as you can see, this playstyle is pretty chill. He is pretty much throwing out the blade traps in order to proc the withering debuffs that grants the enemy to take more chaos damage. And then he's throwing the seismic traps on cooldown. So right here you can see there's a number of the seismic traps, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then he's pressing withering step to apply more wither debuffs. So for people who don't really know what wither does, I think it's 6% increased damage taken, or chaos damage taken per stack, so it's up to 90% damage taken. And then you can also increase the effect of it through, I think, the Chaos Mastery. But overall, you can see that this build has a pretty chill bossing style. It's kind of annoying when the boss teleports around, and it's definitely not the best playstyle for that. So if you ever do like Uber Elder, it would be very annoying. But the build is not bad. If you're trying to do mapping, you'd be using Exsanguinate traps, I think. And then for bossing, you would swap it out for Blade Trap. Now, the reason why this build got so strong, even though it got, I think it got like a 50% damage nerf or something, is because the Temp Chains. Now, the way that Temp Chains works is that it makes stuff expire slower so that your poison will last for longer, and there's no real poison of how many poisons you can have on an enemy. It's all based on duration, so if the poison is lasting longer on the enemies, then you'll be able to stack more poisons, and hence you'll be able to do more damage, and that was absolutely huge. So the way they actually ended up changing curses was that curses do not have the multiplier penalty that they used to have, so you would have less curse effect on bosses and pinnacle bosses from before. So for the gearing for Seismic Trap, Devouring Diadem is actually used in order to run Determination, Grace, Herald of Agony, and Summon Skitter bots with the Malevolence on the Divine Blessing. Now, for this profile, you'll notice that they actually use Divergent Herald of Agony. Now, for Seismic Trap, one of the big things that happened in this patch was that the Jewel Coated Shrapnel was removed, and that granted, I think, like 25% chance to poison. So it's pretty hard to get 100% chance to poison nowadays. So Divergent Herald of Agony is actually not too bad to farm. They just go do Heist a little bit, and this allows you to get 100% poison chance without Coated Shrapnel. Now, we can see that we actually use an Obliteration now. Devouring Diadem is used to get Eldritch Battery to be able to run the Divine Blessing, and it also allows you to run more auras. Now, the build is extremely tanky. You'll see all of the builds in Hardcore are crazy tanky compared to Softcore. So, you have Grace, you have Determination, you path all the way down to the max res nodes by... So you can look down here. Most of the builds go down here to get the max res nodes. And then they also have Recovery from the Saboteurs. So there's a Saboteur node over here. That so every single... You regenerate up to 10% if you just keep throwing traps and mines. And then you also have Leaky Shade. And then you also have the Sabo node that makes you take, I think, 15% less damage. Yeah, 15% reduced damage taken. So you pretty much have very good defenses on a Saboteur. And the bossing playstyle is really good. You can stack the damage. It's poison damage, so it will still be going on. So it's very high damage uptime. Now, next up, we have Summoned Raging Spirits. And this is one of the builds that's kind of newer in 3.20 that kind of took the world by storm. Now, originally, most people decided to play it on Guardian or Necromancer. And let's just go see what this build actually looks like. So this is Ventura's stream. So right here, you can see he's testing out this build for Gauntlet. And this build is a pretty chill playing style. And you can see it's another build with 6k HP. It's on a champion right now, so that's Permanent Fortify. So originally, this build was played on Guardian Necromancer because you didn't need all these defenses. But now with the Gauntlet around, a lot of people are exploring Champion and Juggernaut on pretty much every single build archetype because of how generically good it is at defenses. So this build, all you really have to do is you put on the curses, I think, and then you keep casting your Summon Raging Spirits, and it's linked to Unleash. So you can only, and look at that, he just takes the what's it called, the Die Beam, and then those tentacles still hurt a lot because I don't think he has Grace, because this is, or actually you should have Grace, right? But basically, as you can see, this build has a very chill bossing style. You run away, you cast your Summon Raging Spirits, you make sure you have your curses up, and I don't know if he's actually running Envy, but I think that's just Temp Chains and Despair on the boss from what I see. So you do need to find a way to get 2 curses, whether it's through Whispers of Doom or something like that. But this build's main problem is that it's clear and single target is pretty much linked to melee splash, so you kind of have to swap out that gem. So on some boss fights with multiple targets is a little bit annoying. So there are 2 different variants. There's the fire-based variant, and then there's the poison-based variant. But for the poison-based variant, it's a lot higher single target. However, you do have to get 100% chance to poison, which is kind of annoying to get. So the way that you actually end up getting 100% chance to poison is the United in Dream Sword that you get from like Chayula and Blessing of Chayula. And then you have to get a Darkness Enthroned. You stack Ghastly Eye Jewels. And the Ghastly Eye Jewels, I think each can get up to like 15% chance to poison. So you stack like 2 or 3 of them, and then you can get 100% chance to poison. Now, poison variant is going to be OP because in the Gauntlet, there's extra action speed. So you can see right here, Temp Chains actually will slow down the boss a lot so that the boss won't be like super crazy hyper speed mode, right? And that's actually a huge difference. So you have to put Temp Chains on a boss. And for single target, the damage is actually really high. And I think it's around 15 million DPS, and that's without using a Covenant. I think if you use a Covenant or something like that, and you actually have a little bit more gear than just SSF gear, you can probably get it to the poison cap relatively easily, which is around 38 mil DPS. Now, the main thing about SRS is if we actually look at the tree for SRS, and we could go check it out real fast. The tree for SRS is absolutely great for so many different variants. So you have people who go over here down to get the max res nodes. You're pretty much looking for the aura nodes, and then some people path to Whispers of Doom. And then you can also play it on a Guardian, and the Guardian's like similar, so it goes down to max res. Super tanky build. 6k HP, 58k armor, and this guy even has an Aegis Aurora for kicks. But you can see you can play on anything, even on champion. Yeah, you could go down here. So it's a very good tree, as so many different classes can play it, and that's the fear of the Gauntlets, that everyone is just going to play Summon Raging Spirits of Poison. They're going to farm for Bone Shatter and then switch it over. Very diverse tree that can be played on any class start, and the mapping is not terrible once you get that baseline of gear, which is the 100% chance to poison and everything. And absolutely very flexible build. So next up we have Explosive Arrow, the love child of Zizaran. Now this build has pretty much been around for like a lot of leagues, just like Seismic Trap. Now the difference about Explosive Arrow is that because of how good that people realize that Juggernaut has become, there's more people that play it on Juggernaut. And Juggernaut is just extremely tanky, and it's a very good tree still. It goes towards all of the main stuff you want. And overall, the build is as strong as ever, especially for regular, regular bossing. So right here, let's go see. So this is actually Zizaran playing it right here. So he's doing Uber Elder on hardcore. You can see right here the playstyle, as for all of the other ones, is just you put the totems down, you spam your Frenzy Charge, and you put down your Arcanist Brand, which curses the boss, and you just run around circles. And to see how tanky this build, he doesn't even really, he just takes the donuts, so he doesn't even need to be inside because he has so much armor with Juggernaut. Now there is a special aspect of of the Juggernauts nowadays and Sanctum that has made builds tankier than ever before, and that is the tech of using Lore Weave and Internal Damnation. Now the tech between this is that Internal Damnation pretty much gives you another like 35% damage reduction multiplier on top of everything, and then with the Juggernaut Transcendence node and having 100k armor, the character is more or less immortal outside of damage over time. And if you get Elite Shade Invocation on your Sanctified Relic, then your character is pretty much unkillable. Now the way you scale damage on the build is you get plus level of gems. You get it on your bow, you get it on your amulet. Daddy and Dawn makes Ignite deal damage faster, and then you stack plus level of gems and damage over time multiplier everywhere. You can get damage over time multiplier on your jewel, you can get it on your quiver. Very easy way to scale out your damage. Now, mapping does have a little bit of a delayed damage, but the clear is honestly pretty good because of Ignite Proliferation, which you get on your Eldritch Implicit on the gloves. Now, for mapping, you kind of do need Rain of Splinters. What Rain of Splinters does is it grants you multiple projectiles, so it helps you have better coverage with your Ignites. Then, like I said before, the tankiness can be actually taken to a new level with Lore Weave and Internal Damnation that you can see in this profile over here. So Internal Damnation is this amulet. Now, next up, we have the #1 build in hardcore, and it's actually Juggernaut. Or it's not Juggernaut, it's actually Juggernaut Bone Shatter or just Bone Shatter. Now, Bone Shatter means that melee is actually the #1 option in hardcore, which is kind of weird to say, right? You would think that hardcore will not be preferential for melee because melee has a lot of disadvantages. Now, Juggernaut is #1 at 80%, and this is a common theme that you will see with all these hardcore builds, is that Juggernaut is being slotted into every single skill archetype. The Slayer's at 18%, and the build relies on getting 100k plus armor with Determination, Iron Reflexes, Jade, and Granite Flask. So you can see right here, Jade, Granite Flask, he's running Determination, Defiance Banner. But the main problem with these builds is that it's hard to get 100% spell suppression, which is why for Alkaiser's case, you can see that he's using 3 evasion pieces over here so in order to get suppression on it. And he's even using a small cluster jewel that grants Elegant Form for more spell suppression. So once you get 100% spell suppression and then you have the fake Transcendence node on Juggernaut, you'll see that the character is going to be more or less immortal. So like this node right here is, so 8% of armor applies to fire, cold, and lightning damage taken from hits. So you have like around like 10k armor that applies to fire, cold, and lightning damage. That's another like 60-70% damage reduction on top of your elemental damage reduction. And then you also have the max res, so you're around like 79-80% max res. So at that point, your character is extremely tanky. Now, in terms of how you get all of your damage scaling, you are pretty much using an axe with as high PDPS as possible. You get 100% impale chance, you get impale effect. And then you have this interesting thing that you have to balance out, which is called trying to get precise technique working, which is getting enough accuracy so that you get a 40% more damage multiplier. So right here, let's go see in Hardcore SSF Sanctum. And let's see, first person, let's just go look at Alkaiser's profile. So if you import the profile over here, you will see that he has a lot of accuracy rating. So he has to run precision, I'm pretty sure. A lot of them run, oh, he doesn't actually run precision, but a lot of people run precision on arrogance in order to reach the, what's it called, the accuracy cap. But once you get good enough gear, you could probably bypass it. Now, the reason why most people use axes instead of maces is axes have a lot higher physical damage, and axes also grants you ability to get rage, which helps out a lot. Now, the clear for Bone Shatter is really good because you get additional strikes from Ancestral Cry, and then you also get built-in area of effect scaling based on how many mobs are around you with the Bone Shatter gem, which helps out a lot for clear. Now, the bossing is kind of scuffed a little bit in terms of like how fast it is because you do have mediocre damage uptime with melee. So this is Ben trying out Eater of Worlds with Bone Shatter Juggernaut in a test for Gauntlet, and you'll see that you don't have chill, right? You don't have the temp chains on a boss. So the boss is kind of going berserk. The boss is really, really fast. You can kind of counteract this if you run summon Skitter bots. And he does have 10% chill on the boss. But as you can see, everything just looks so fast when there's haste. And that's just the difference when you don't have temp chains with the curse effect. And it's kind of hard to get that much damage up top. You see, he's always constantly dodging tentacles. But the build is really, really tanky. He's not really worried too much about tanking that much stuff, unless he gets into the end. And I found the end of this video funny because all that work and the boss just uses some tentacles. And yeah, that's the downside of not having, I think, Grace is what it is. Because I think when you have Grace, that doesn't really happen as much. But that boss just does a lot of damage. Now, you can pretty much stand in everything. And when you can stand in everything, you can't die. Your damage uptime will be okay. And Bone Shatter should technically carry you. So overall, hopefully this has been a pretty good overview of the top 4 skills. I do think that the banned skills in Gauntlet are more or less pretty good. So right now, Cold Dot is banned, Seismic Trap is banned, and Detonate Dead is banned. So out of these top 4 or top 5 builds, only Seismic Trap is banned. So you should expect to see a lot of Poison SRS with Bone Shatter farming the gear. So every single person is going to be playing Bone Shatter into Poison SRS. Now, 3.20 has really, in my opinion, been the rise of the Juggernaut. And even in softcore trade, we saw that Pox took his Righteous Fire build to Juggernaut, and it is incredibly tanky. Juggernaut, as an ascendancy, has literally transcended heights to become like a very meta ascendancy in hardcore, purely through the Transcendence node and the regen you get. And there's also Undeniable. It's just an amazing ascendancy now. And Temp Chains is the other story in hardcore, is that Temp Chains is incredibly strong in terms of survivability and slowing down the boss, and also buffing your poison or damage over time so that you can reach the poison cap a lot easier. And we can probably expect to see Temp Chains being used. Temp Chains is pretty much the gem of the league in terms of the Gauntlet. But thanks for watching, everyone. I hope you find more Divines and Mage Bloods than me. If you're playing the Gauntlet, check out Bone Shatter and Poison SRS. I might try to make a little bit of a guide for it, but that does require me to do a test run. But thanks for watching, everyone. I hope you find more Mirrors and Divines than me, and see you next time. Bye!